This is our first night turn of this 2-day campaign. It gets dark very early. It is 4:30 p.m. Line of sight is reduced all the way down to 1. And again, this is a night turn, so indirect fire is not very effective. There's a -2 modifier just for being a night turn. And like I said, the Soviets might be gearing up and saving their ammo that they're going to get resupply on for the larger artillery pieces that are coming. On this turn, the Soviets get 1 reinforcement, the 3rd of the 47th 76mm artillery battery. We'll put them here off map where they will stay. We'll do our first player reset and flip over our infantry guns, mortars, and artillery back to their non-fired side. There are a couple more options for units here in the night phase that we could do also. We have the double movement, where a unit can move twice its allowance as long as it doesn't start in an enemy zone of control, build a bonfire, and or attempt recovery. So the Soviet units that are reduced, who build a bonfire there, can still attempt recovery. And then exclusive to the Finnish player, they can conduct a night raid on their turn using full strength infantry companies only. And we'll explain how that works when we get to the Finns' turn. Definitely want to try and conduct a night raid to do some damage to these Soviet units. The first thing we're going to deal with is building bonfires. When you build a bonfire with a unit, you place this bonfire token on top of the building unit. If there are units in the hex that do not build bonfires, they will be placed on top of the bonfire token, and therefore they won't be protected by it. Each unit has to build a bonfire in that hex in order to be placed under it. And if any units move into a hex that already has a bonfire, either through movement or retreat, they're placed on top and they don't benefit from it. So each unit has to build its own bonfire. And we'll start here on Katasari Island. And all 3 of these infantry companies are going to stay put and get under the bonfire. Same down here. We have 3 infantry companies and a machine gun. We will attempt recovery with that reduced unit, but they're all safe. Same with our units down here. We don't want to take any step losses with any of those since they're a single and they can't be recovered. So it would just be free victory points if they froze to death for the Finns. Here we have a mortar and an infantry gun. Then we have several units, infantry companies, machine guns, mortars, another infantry gun that we want to protect. Do we want to leave the mortars exposed to fire some rounds? No, because of the negative modifiers, with this being a night phase. So we'll have all the units that are there participate in building bonfires. We'll attempt recovery with that one here in just a moment also. And 1 more token there for all of them. And again, they had to be 4 or more away from any enemy units, and all of them meet that requirement. I'll go ahead and attempt recovery for those Soviet units. First, we'll do the one on Katasari Island. The Soviets still have their morale bonus here in this night turn, so that's a +1 for them. The unit is 4 or more away, that's another +1, and it is a night turn, so that is another +1. Let me check and see if the unit on Katasari Island is out of supply. No, they're okay. They're within 4 hexes of the road, and they can trace from there back to their supply without any issue. So they're going to get a +3 total on the recovery table with all those modifiers. So the unit on Katasari Island, wow, not good there. And now we'll go with the unit that's north of the Kivalsami Bridge. Hell, they definitely made it. So this unit here, no luck, but this unit was able to recover itself back to full strength. Some reinforcements slipped in during the night, were able to help bolster the unit's ranks. That is a really quick turn for the Soviets. It would have been foolish to try to do some attacks or assaults. It would have been silly to not prepare by building bonfires with my units here. We do have a full 7 turns remaining, so they have time to make their move on the hotel. I've been aggressive at times it did not pay off a few times. So be a little more conservative here in the night, wait for the next day to roll around, wait for some artillery pieces to come in, and really make some smart moves to try and dislodge the Finns from the hotel. Again, the Soviets currently have 4 ammo for their guns. They're going to gain 6 more in the next turn, putting them back up to 10, which means they can fire their artillery several times. The big artillery does not use that same ammo. They flip over when fired, and you have to roll a 6-sided die to see how long until they can fire again. So things could go really well or really poorly depending on those rolls. A bad roll of a 5 or a 6, if they fire it on the very first turn they come into play, will put them out of commission for the rest of this scenario because it'll push them past the 12th turn. So the Soviets have to hope for some good rolls and have to really plan for an attack with those artillery. That way they don't waste it in case their bad rolls keep them from going again during this scenario. That'll conclude it for the Soviets. There's nothing else we want to do. We just have to worry about these 2 units here that are going to have to roll on the sub-zero loss table at the end of the night turn. And if any of these units get dislodged from underneath their bonfires, they would too. That was a quick turn. We'll move right into the Finns, who are going to gain 2 more reinforcements here at night. They're both machine gun units, MG2, JR16, and I'll place them up by my supply hex. Here in the night turn for the Finns, don't forget that if you're starting outside of an enemy zone of control, you can do double movement. We could dig in. We got these units here. Could just automatically dig in, but I might want to use those for the night raid. So let's see how the night raid works. Any of the Finnish infantry units that are full strength and take no other part or take no other action during the night phase or the night turn may be eligible to attack and do a night raid. When they do a night raid, they can use triple their normal movement allowance. And then they would perform an attack using the combat results table and then return to their starting position, all in a single action. And there's a small chance too that the Finns can get lost along the way and not be able to conduct the night raid. If we want to do a night raid, we have to designate the raiding units, designate the target hex that we're going to attack. Then we would roll on the Finnish night raid table, and let's take a look at that. And we need to look at the modifiers also. We can see down below the modifiers, if it's the first night raid of the game, which this would be, they'll get a +2. If I send Piari with them, it'll be a +2. If the target is a bonfire hex, we get +2. We get a +1 if it takes 7 or fewer movement points by all raiding units. If the entire route to the target can be traced via roads, frozen lake, or village hexes, then we get another +1, which means we're not going through forest or suo. And you can see as long as we roll pretty good, should be able to get a lot of modifiers here early on. We might be able to attack at a very beneficial column shift and do some real damage to some of these Soviet units waiting underneath these bonfires. So some of the criteria that we have to follow for night raids is you can only conduct 1 per night turn. And we can take up to 3 full-strength Finnish infantry units, with or without Piari with us, to conduct the night raid, as long as we begin the action phase stacked with one another or positioned such that every unit that's participating is adjacent to every other participating unit. And then none of them can be in an enemy zone of control. And then the hex that we're targeting has to be at least 4 hexes from all Finnish units at the start of the phase. So we couldn't come over here and do a night raid on these. We have to concentrate on these bonfire units out here. Also, they can't conduct any other actions. Whether or not the night raid is successful, in case we get lost, that's the only action they can take during the night turn. We can use units that are dug in, and they do not lose their dug in status. So if there was only 1 unit under there, they could take part of the night raid, and since they returned, the dug in status does not go away. The units that are taking part in the raid, they must be able to trace a path free of enemy units and enemy zone of control. So they would have to take the long way around. And also the hex that we're targeting cannot be more than 18 movement points from any of the raiding units. And it can't be the hotel hex, but we don't have to worry about that because we control the hotel hex currently. And when we're coming up with the number of movement points that it's going to take, you don't include the cost to enter the target hex, and you don't pay +2 for conducting the assault. You just add up the terrain costs of all the hexes between the raiding units and their target. And then they can use the road bonus when tracing their route also. So that's a lot of things to consider. So I'm going to take a quick moment and look and see what units I have available to conduct a night raid with and what target I would like to take, and if I have a clear route that meets all of those parameters. I'm ready to go with a night raid. I'm going to use these two infantry companies and that infantry company there. They're all full strength and they're all adjacent to one another, so they can be used for the night raid. We're targeting this hex right here, which is 4 or more away from any Finnish unit, so we're good there. And we must be able to trace a path free of enemy units. This unit here, so if we start there, we're going 1, 2, 3, and then 2 to come into that area because it's in an enemy zone of control. So we're a total of 5. Both of these units back here are going to have to add on an extra half because they have to move into that hex first. So 5.5, so easily within range. And I almost forgot, I don't have to pay terrain cost to move into a hex, so that's only a 3 and a 3.5 to move there, so no problem at all. So we'll look at our modifiers on the Finnish night raid table. This is the first night raid of the game, so it's a +2. Piari is really far away, he's not with us. The target hex does contain a bonfire marker, so that's another 2 for a total of +4. The route to the target requires 7 or fewer movement points by all raiding units. That is correct, so that's another +1, so that's 5. The entire route or target can be traced via roads, frozen lakes, or village hexes. We started on roads, went across 2 frozen lakes, a village, and another road. So we nailed that too. So that's a total of +6 we're going to roll on the Finnish night raid table. And we're just rolling 1d6. So with a +6, the worst we can get is 7. So we're going to get an attack with a 3 column to the right shift at a minimum. And if we roll good, we'll really get a nice bonus. Alright, the Finns are hoping for something good here. The best we can get would be 9 or more. A 3 or higher, and we're maxed out on the night raid table. Nice. That is an 11. No problem at all. That 11 is going to give us an attack at a 5 column to the right shift. That is a massive advantage. So now we have to get our combat ratio normal, and it's a 5 of 5 and a 4, so it's a 14. And unfortunately these guys are a little stronger, so they're at 15. So it's a 14 attacking a 15. That's less than a 1-to-1, so it'll go in favor of the defenders. So that's going to be a disadvantage for us. We're going to be starting at a 1-to-2 ratio. If we look at the combat, assault, finish, night raid, and resolution modifiers, we don't have to worry about frozen lake. We're not there, and this is not armor on a night turn. Now if we look on the titles here, like combat only, and you see that little cross symbol, combats and assaults, cross symbol, and we look down at the very bottom, none of these modifiers apply to the resolution of Finnish night raids. So none of those other bonuses and penalties apply here. So the Soviets are not going to get their morale bonus. So again, we're starting at a 1-to-2 combat ratio, and now we're going to shift 5 to the right. So we're going to go to a 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. So we're going to roll on the 4-to-1 combat results table and hope for a high roll, at least a 6 or higher. Alright Finns, we need a good result here on this night raid. A 10, that is nice. If we look at the 10 on the 4-to-1, that is 0 to 4 losses. Now the Finns don't have to worry, they just return to their positions without taking losses. But this stack, we have 3 infantry companies that must take 4 losses, and there is no retreating during the night phase. All losses on either side must be taken as step reductions. The Soviets are going to take a step reduction with every one of these units. That way we don't eliminate more than one. That only satisfied 3, so one of them will have to take and be placed in the dead pool. It was a very successful night raid. And any units that didn't do anything that are reduced, let's see if we want to attempt recovery now. So we have 2 reduced units right there that can attempt recovery. And 2 there. And I think this, well, that's a unit that was part of the raid. That. Then we have the bicycle and that unit there. And I think everyone else is just fine up here. Yes. So we need to attempt recovery for 2, 4, 6 units. So we'll roll starting here in the south, and I'll go in order with top unit, then bottom unit, and then next one's top, bottom, then we'll jump up to here and do the same thing, top, and end with that bicycle unit. All the units are 4 or more away from the enemy that are attempting recovery. Being 4 or more away, they'll get a +1. This is night, they'll get another +1. We don't have to worry about supply with the fins. So all those units are going to get a +2. We'll start with the 8 of the 3rd JR16. So they're going to need a 4, 5, or 6. No recovery for them. Next we have the 3rd ERP 112. No. Next we have the 2nd of the 1st JR16 attempting recovery. No. Ooh, rough night for the fins. And now the 8th of the 3rd JR37. No. 4 failures in a row. Next, the 3rd of the 1st JR16. Yes, finally somebody succeeded. And our bicycle unit, the 1st of the PPP7. No. 1 out of 6. That was terrible. Not good. All the units under this stack failed. Under that stack failed. The only one that succeeded was this 3rd of the 1st JR16. We'll flip it over to its full strength side and move on about our business. That will conclude our night turn. I ran out of tokens because I used them all on the bonfires, because on the opposite side of the bonfire is the check stack for loss on the Sub-Zero loss table token, which should have gone on top of the 3 units that took part in the night raid, because they're going to have to roll along with those Soviet units that were not under bonfires. So they're going to have to roll individually. Normally it would be per stack, but they're not stacked together. So we'll start with this unit, move up to this unit, and then finally the 3rd one will be the dug-in unit when we're doing the rolls. And now we'll roll for those 3 units, and the fins are going to get a +1 just because they're fins. So as long as they don't roll a 1 or 2, they're fine. 3 or higher with that +1 will keep them from having any effect. 3 is successful, no worries. Next unit. Good. And now finally the one under the dug-in marker. Oh no. So our bicycle unit, the 3rd of the PPP7, will flip back to its reduced side because it's the only one there, so it has to take the step reduction. Now we'll move on to our Soviet stack, starting with this stack and then moving to that stack. Both of those Soviet stacks are in forest, so they're not going to take the frozen lake -1 modifier. So they need to roll a 4 or higher to avoid a step loss to their stack. No, the first stack will need to take one, and the second one will not. The freezing weather got to the Soviets. We're not going to reduce the machine gun. And we have 3 infantry companies there, so we'll just reduce one of them, take a step loss, and get everybody back in place. Dug in just like they were. And I forgot about my machine gun units out here. They weren't going to take part in any raids or have to roll on the table. So let's go ahead and move them into position. They have 4 movement points. They can go up to 6 with extended movement. Let's see, 4 will get them here, 5 there. Well, I can't go there. So I could get to right before the Heva Salami Bridge, or I could come down here, 4, 5, and 6, and 6. So I could come all the way down to these hexes here if I wanted to. But I think the support's going to be needed more so over here than down here. Because I think the bulk of the Soviet army is coming this direction. We do have units coming over here, but I don't think they're as dangerous as this large group that's coming this direction. So I'll take them, move them 4.5 with the extended movement, can't move any further. And I'll bring them both there. Or do I want to bring one of them down here to help provide some support? I decided to stick with what I had there. I think I can move them into position on the Heva Salami Bridge, at least one of them, and they can help do direct fire attacks. And if I have to move one down here in the next turn, I can get them down there pretty quick with the road bonus. And that's going to conclude our night turn and the Finn's turn. And that's going to take us through the night and into our next day. For turn number 6, we can now take all of the bonfire markers off of the Soviets because the Sub-Zero loss table rolls have already been made, so there's nothing to worry about anymore. And now that we're moving into the second day, the Soviets no longer have their morale bonus. That is now gone. So they don't get that easy column shift. They're going to have to move people into position and get the greater numbers to give them a better ratio and not just rely on that shift of 1. So here's our situation. And keep in mind, the Soviets are going to get more ammo, and they do have 3 artillery pieces right now. They took some damage and took some wounds here on Katasari Island. And their companies are depleted. So they can't just rush off and attack right away. They're going to have to do some recovery, or maybe fall back and have other units replace them before they attack. They're ready to go here at these front lines. Assaults, they no longer get the 2-column shift. So combats are more feasible, especially against the hotel. Maybe if they were able to get some troops around the village here, maybe some assaults would be possible if they had greater numbers in their stack against these relatively smaller and more widely dispersed units. We don't have large numbers in each of these stacks. The Soviets are going to have to really use their artillery effectively to try and make progress there. I can't really stack any more here, so most likely that's going to be our attackers with a lot of indirect fire support to help shift the columns during their combat. And the Finns have to hold fast, try and defend better. They're going to get a few more reinforcements, but again, the Soviets' heavy artillery is looming in the near future, so we have a lot to worry about. Again, we got Lupta Kamoki, and here Visvara up here. I don't know if it was off the map when I pointed at it. I think so. I think it's just off the screen there. That we also have to worry about for victory points. They've already gained the Kivalsami Bridge. They have the road to their supply. They almost have Katasari Island. This was last occupied by Finns. So we'll put a Finnish marker on there as a reminder until we get a Soviet to move there or put it in their zone of control. They don't have control of the whole island technically yet. We're all set and ready to move into the next day, December 9th.